We are potentially just one day away from a verdict in the trial of Kyle Rittenhouse. Attorneys will present closing arguments tomorrow morning, and then the jury will head into deliberation. Rittenhouse faces 6 counts in total for shooting 3 men, killing 2 of them, injuring 1 during a night of unrest in Kenosha. Jurors will now be allowed to consider some lesser charges in addition to those prosecutors originally brought against the 18-year-old. Here to help us look into the trial, UW Assistant Law Professor Ian May. And thank you so much for being with us again on a Sunday evening. Really appreciate your insight. Let's just get right into this. We know that there could be some lesser charges in these fatal shootings. Right now, Rittenhouse faces intentional, reckless attempted homicide charges, reckless endangerment charges. But if the jurors decide on these lesser charges, what could that look like? What would that mean to you?
You know, a lot of times some really interesting things happen behind the scenes, and that's what happened on Friday. I think it was all in all a decent day for the prosecution for a number of reasons. One, as to the first incident, which involved Mr. Rosenbaum, that was the first death in the shooting and the first death in Mr. Ritten in the case. And so at that moment, the question is whether or not there could be a lower charge or a less severe charge. And in that case, the judge said, we're not going to permit it. And that could be a win for the defense. The defense feels really strong about that particular beating that particular charge. But here's the thing. The judge is also considering and inclined to give the state the room to argue for provocation in the incident involving Mr. Rosenbaum. This means that the state could possibly argue that Mr. Rosenbaum had Mr. Rittenhouse had waived his self-defense. And if that's the case, then it becomes much harder for the defense. So I actually think there might be some room for the state that the judge is giving the state to make some additional ground.
We saw Rittenhouse take the stand last week, sobbing, very emotional. Do you feel he was able to bolster his case of self-defense?
Yeah, I think he was. You know, this is a situation with self-defense cases when there's someone who's deceased, in this case, 2 individuals, that they can't talk about what occurred. And so we're left with the video, and we're left with individuals who may not have gotten a good view of what occurred. And who had the best view? That was Mr. Rittenhouse. I do think that he did a good job in terms of, for a defendant, having to explain a story, very, very effective. At the same time, I think if there's going to be a weakness that we look at regarding Mr. Rittenhouse's testimony and the case for Mr. Rittenhouse, it would be the incident regarding Mr. Huber. Some of you will remember that's the incident in which an individual came and hit him with a skateboard, and then he was shot in the heart. I think the video is really all you can look at that to really, it explains what happens. I think there's going to be some serious thought by the jurors as to whether or not that was a justified shooting.
About 30 seconds left, but one important question. 12 jurors will decide Kyle Rittenhouse's fate. It could be very likely that all 12 will be white. Do you think that race could play a big factor in their decision?
Well, you know, studies show and the statistics show that race does play a large and outsized favor in our criminal justice system. And there's no question that those individuals of color who are subject to the criminal system take on a disproportionate burden compared to, say, white defendants. And here you have a white jury. Most likely there could be, say, one juror of color on the panel, but it's quite possible this could be an all-white jury, and that definitely will have an impact on the outcome, and it favors defendant.
And each side's got about 2.5 hours to make their arguments. It'll be interesting to see if they use all of it. A big day tomorrow. Ian May, again, we always appreciate your insight. We hope you come back to shake things out with us again. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate it.
You bet. Our coverage of the Rittenhouse trial does continue online. Just head over to fox6now.com, your Fox 6 News app, and on the Fox 6 News YouTube channel.